Kathy Jo believed Jeffs and continued making her wedding dress. But as she sewed, she began having serious doubts about plural marriage, the backbone of FLDS teachings.
And I thought, wait a minute, what if I'm not happy? What if I can't have kids? What if my husband doesn't like me? And I just started to get terrified because I could be called at any moment. And I think that's probably part of the impetus behind me getting more rebellious so that no one would want me.
Kathy Jo stopped keeping sweet and started acting out. Jeffs had no tolerance for those who strayed from his teachings, and his ever-watchful eye soon focused in on Kathy Jo.
I have my little ways of maybe wearing my hair a little bit looser, sneaking a little makeup, and it caused disruption. He wanted people in that school to focus on priesthood matters. You know, we were all young teens and raging hormones, and I wanted to be unique and cute.
In 1986, Jeffs expelled Kathy Jo from school for passing a note to a boy. But she didn't really lose faith until the group's prophet, Leroy Johnson, died.
When he died, I was 15, turning 16. We were told he would never die. We would be lifted up with him, and I felt so blessed. And it just really crumbled, and it just, you know, it really was the end for me.
Against everything she'd ever been taught, Kathy Jo began sharing her doubts with an FLDS man who was also questioning the faith. Within a year, in a break from the church, they got married without the blessing of the new prophet, Rulon Jeffs. Shortly after, they moved to California. There was no harrowing escape, just the courage to leave behind her family, her friends, and everything she'd ever known.
Never once in my life have I considered going back. I missed my family. I missed my friends. I kept in touch with them for a long time. I also had a nagging fear at the back of my head that maybe they'd come get me.
Like many who leave the FLDS, life on the outside was hard for Kathy Jo. She struggled with substance abuse and depression. She got divorced.
The reason I began my substance abuse is because the emptiness was so vast. And as I started to get over the excitement of the newness, I was alone, all alone.
It wasn't until Kathy Jo became a single mother that she stopped doing drugs. Today, 20 years after leaving the FLDS, she's happily remarried with 2 children, and she has a new perspective on her former life. What she once thought was a strict upbringing now seems much more sinister.
The members of the FLDS are programmed, and they are brainwashed systematically, day in and day out. It's done by isolation, it's done by indoctrination, it's done by physical abuse, sexual abuse.
In 2005, Kathy Jo founded Out of Polygamy, a not-for-profit organization that aims to educate the public about the FLDS.
Don't mistake this for a religion. This is a group of people who have the power to abuse, and they are abusing.
The FLDS denies systematically marrying off underage brides. Up next, one young woman's story.
Ruth, how old were you when you got married?
Phoenix TV reporter Mike Watkins has been covering the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or FLDS, for the last 15 years. He's so outraged by the group and its alleged domination and oppression of women, he calls it America's Taliban. He even made a documentary about it on his own time and his own dime, Colorado City and the Underground Railroad. In it, he tells the story of baby-faced teenager Ruth Stubbs.
At the age of 16, Ruth was given as a so-called plural wife to a 32-year-old polygamous man who already had 2 wives and nearly 20 children. A man by the name of Rodney Holm, a guy who also just happens to be a sworn officer on Colorado City's police force.
Ruth, how old were you when you got married?
16.
16 years old. How old were you when you became pregnant with your first child?
16.
16. I've always thought that Ruth Stubbs is the Rosa Parks of this human rights revolution. She came out of Colorado City at the age of 19 back in 2002. She has 2 little babies with her, a third on the way, and suddenly she's running. She was given as the 3rd wife to a 32-year-old police officer. One of his wives was Ruth's older sister.
Watkiss aggressively pursues Holm as the polygamist and his attorney leave a Phoenix court appearance in 2002.
My name is Mike Watkiss. I'm a reporter here in Phoenix.
I know who you are, sir.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you about this proceeding we just witnessed. Apparently you're married to 3 women.
Now, Mr. Holm has gone to court to get access to his children. He's going to tell his story to a judge where decisions can be made. He doesn't want to make his children the subject of some kind of media circus. And with that, we're not going to say anything else today.
My understanding is that you are a police officer.
We're done for today. We're done for today, sir. Thank you.
In August 2003, Holm was convicted of 3 felony counts of bigamy and sexual misconduct with a minor. The upshot, Ruth got custody of her children. Rod Holm served 1 year in jail, and the FLDS and its newly self-proclaimed prophet, Warren Steed Jeffs, ended up under the government's microscope.
It was that moment that Warren Jeffs said, we're in trouble here. If they can come and get a polygamous cop follower of mine and throw him in jail, it's only a matter of time before they come after me. I would argue that that was the one time that the prophet Warren Jeffs was actually prophetic, because he knew that they were going to come after him.
Sure enough, beginning in 2005, the law turned its attention on FLDS leader Warren Jeffs.
I will say the prayer to begin with. Close your eyes, hold your eyes.
Charging him with a series of sex crimes in Arizona and Utah. Among them, forcing a 14-year-old girl to marry and have sex with her 19-year-old first cousin. Jeffs went on the run and was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Here's Jeffs kissing a girl alleged to be a 12-year-old child bride. The shot reportedly taken while he was on the run.
Well, he had people all over the Southwest who were willing to take him in and keep him underground. I mean, they gave him food, they gave him money, and they gave him cell phones. You know, he called them hiding houses, and he would stash women in these various places and just say, you wait, stay there until I show up and, you know, bless you or do whatever I want to do with you, deliver a sermon, have sex, and go on down the road.
Warren Jeffs was captured during a routine traffic stop near Las Vegas, Nevada in August 2006.
Mr. Jeffs, you will be committed to the custody of the sheriff to be transported to the Department of Corrections.
1 year later, Jeffs was tried in Utah and found guilty of 2 counts of rape by accomplice.
I think that he had too much power too quick, and it ate him alive and destroyed his soul.
When nobody's looking, when nobody's watching, when nobody's protecting children, guys like Warren Jeffs emerge. And I hope that that's the lesson.
But Watkiss says women rarely turn against their husbands or the group. Trained from an early age to be submissive and obedient, most young FLDS women with little education and almost no real concept of the outside world are said not to question their place. Is this just a set of religious teachings, or can it be considered mind control? Or is it something else entirely?
I would call it a sort of social indoctrination. Maybe that's another way of looking at it. In-group, out-group mentality.
It's been suggested sometimes that because the women are quite deferential and may hesitate a little bit to engage in conversation with strangers and things like that, that's evidence that there is some sort of mind control, that they've been brainwashed to not do this. I don't see that at all.
We've heard what the girls were taught in the FLDS. Up next, what about the boys?
When I was growing up, I was taught to treat girls like rattlesnakes, because if you commit fornication or adultery, you go straight to hell.
The images and stories of the women and girls of the FLDS have been alarming. Questions of forced marriages, pregnant teens and sexual abuse have put the spotlight on a religious sect used to living in seclusion.
I have my children, and they mean a lot to me.
But if the women and girls are being portrayed as systematic victims of abuse and mind control, what about the men and boys?
I've heard a lot of horror stories that girls being actually raped on their wedding night by the men that were, because they're told and they're taught that once they're given to a man, that they are his property, and so he can do with them what he wants to do, and he does. And that's the way he's brought up as well.
According to former FLDS member Carl Holm, the hierarchy of the group goes like this. The prophet comes first, and the men are expected to be subservient to him. In turn, the men are